Is it just me, or is it absolutely crazy that Gotham Knights is already 6 months old? Like, it feels like the game just came out. Maybe time's just flying for me, I don't know. Let me know in the comments below how you feel about it. But thank you all so much for tuning into today's video. We're going to be discussing the Kelvin Incident, which is the new piece of DLC for Gotham Knights. To give a little bit of background about the post-launch content for Gotham Knights, about a month after the base game launched, we got Heroic Assault, which was a raid mode for the game. It allowed up to 4 players to take control of the Knights and take on Starro the Conqueror. There were 30 floors where we got to fight through waves of enemies until we finally got to face Starro himself. But outside of that, there just hasn't been so much as a whispered word said about DLC.
Not a whisper word is said.
There have been some performance-based patches which have greatly improved the optimization of the game, but since there just wasn't any discussion of a roadmap or any discussion of any individual DLCs coming out, many of us just assumed that it wouldn't happen. For me personally, I always felt that that would be a very big missed opportunity because Gotham Knights feels like a game that would be perfect for expansion. It feels like a great launch pad for something that could be built upon. I know that many people feel that I'm a hater for the game because I gave it a fairly mixed though positive review. I gave it a 6.7 out of 10, and my reasons for that really are that there are things in this game that I think are great, but I don't think enough emphasis was put on those things to really give me a great experience. I did enjoy my time with the game, but I wish there'd been more villain case files for me to uncover, more in the way of lore and just expansion of these characters and their backstories. I just wanted to feel more immersed in Gotham. For people who love the RPG mechanics and for grinding levels and upgrading gear, I think this game is perfect for them. I just wish that there had been more of that other side of the coin of content in the way of story and narrative and world building. But again, after 6 months, I just assumed that we wouldn't be getting any post-launch content, so you can imagine my surprise when last week, out of the blue, Warner Brothers Games Montreal tweeted out a tease that there would be some kind of post-launch content involving Mr. Freeze, Harley Quinn, and Clayface, and literally the next day, they just dropped the content. There wasn't like a trailer or anything preceding it. They just dropped the content. And that feels very odd from a marketing perspective. I feel like if you're going to launch post-launch content for your game, you'd want people to know about it and to be downloading the game and getting excited about it. So I don't really understand the marketing, though I've never really understood the marketing of Gotham Knights. It's always been very sporadic and strange, but I do want to give Warner Brothers Games Montreal a lot of credit here. This is free-to-play content for anyone who owns the game. You get to go into boss fights against Mr. Freeze, Harley Quinn, and Clayface with up to 4 players, and that's not something that you could do in the base game. They've added new gear, they've added a new tier to the gear so that you can customize your characters even further and increase their levels even more than you could in the base game. They found a way to sort of tie the Kelvin Incident into the game's narrative, even though it doesn't really add anything to the narrative or even necessarily feel canon. It does feel like it fits well within the story that precedes it with the various villain case files. And I do think that it's great that Warner Brothers Games Montreal released this. It's something that they absolutely didn't have to do, and I think it's awesome that they wanted to provide players of their game with a reason to go back and play more of it and to experience more of the game. I also feel that they took what worked well with Heroic Assault and improved upon it, particularly by adding some variety to the floors. The first 5 floors take place in Blackgate, the next 5 take place in the sewers, and then the next 5 take place in Star Labs. This felt like it had better variety than the initial Heroic Assault, which only took place in the catacombs beneath Gotham, so that was very much appreciated. I also love how they played on the multiplayer that you can experience with up to 4 players, and then also balance that out by allowing 2 boss fights to take place at the same time. So for example, Harley Quinn and Mr. Freeze might be fighting you at the same time, and so you have to be really resourceful, you have to have your level high enough, and you have to be working with other players in order for this to really feel like a balanced experience. So in short, I think it's great that Warner Brothers Games Montreal gave a pretty expansive free update to the game, but with that being said, I'm still left feeling somewhat underwhelmed personally, and that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the intentions of Warner Brothers Games Montreal, nor directly does that have anything to do with the Kelvin Incident. Moreover, I'm I'm just a little disappointed that the DLC hasn't been geared towards some of those aspects of the game that I truly love. Again, if your primary objective for playing this game is for level grinding and upgrading your gear and your experience and getting new mod chips to play with, then I think this is going to be perfect for you, and it's going to be exactly what you want out of this game. Personally, though, my reason for playing Gotham Knights is because I love these characters and I love this world, and I want expansions that explore that. I think part of my disappointment with the Kelvin Incident expansion sort of stems from the fact that very recently we learned from data miners and modders that there was a lot of cut content from Gotham Knights, which is something that I have suspected for a long time. I've always kind of felt like the game feels almost like the theatrical cut of Justice League, and that there's a really solid framework for something far more ambitious than what we got. My favorite part of the game, for example, was the villain case files, but there were only 3 of them. The premeditated crime system felt like it could have been a really solid gameplay mechanic. They could have even included a sort of nemesis system similar to the one in Shadow of Mordor. There could have been sub-bosses like Bane and Killer Croc roaming the city that we could have had to go take down. And yes, I understand that Gotham Knights wasn't necessarily trying to focus on some of these characters and some of the things that the Batman Arkham games focused on, but I feel like it could have the best of both worlds. It could satisfy the players who are looking for an RPG experience, and it could also satisfy fans like me who are looking for a more world-building, story-based experience. I could realistically see my score of 6.7 jumping to at least an 8, if not an 8.5 or 9, if this game had included more villain case files and more lore that I could discover. Gotham Knights is also in this interesting situation where Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League just got pushed back almost a year, I guess 9 months, so I shouldn't say almost a year, and Wonder Woman is probably not coming out for at least a year, if not 2. And they are kind of the only DC game out right now. So if they suddenly came out and said that they had an expansive DLC, I think it could get people back to playing this game while they wait for the others, and the optimization has been improved. So if the game had improved both from a quality perspective of the optimization and also from a content perspective, where some of those aspects that people felt were lacking were no longer lacking, I think the public perception of Gotham Knights could really turn around. I'm personally still crossing my fingers that we get some villain case file DLCs where maybe they add Two-Face, Solomon Grundy, and some of that cut content. This is one of those games where I'd just love to see some kind of director's cut or something, or just some expansive DLC. Maybe they could give us brief campaigns for each of the knights. We could get a DLC where we get to play as Nightwing going up against Deathstroke, or a Robin DLC where we get to go up against Victor Zsasz, or a Batgirl DLC where we get to go up against Jim Gordon Jr., or a prequel DLC where we get to play as Batman, or a follow-up DLC where we get to see what happens with the Court of Owls next. I just feel like there's a lot of potential here, and it could really delve into some of those aspects and mechanics that some of us really loved. I personally really want to love Gotham Knights, but it just can't get to that level, again, because the things that I loved in the game weren't plentiful or fleshed out enough, and I think DLC would be an opportunity to do just that, but I don't know that they will. At this point, I'm thinking that the DLC might just consist of Heroic Assault, and you know what? That's okay. If that's all it is, that's great, and I hope it finds its right audience. I personally just am not connecting as much with this as I would with something like additional villain case files. But as always, I am curious to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What are your thoughts on the Kelvin Incident? What are your thoughts on Gotham Knights 6 months later? Thank you all so much for tuning in. Please be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video and would like to see more videos like this one, and we will see you guys in the next one.